2 NFL player props here over on PrizePicks, you guys, for Week 2 Sunday slate. Before I get started, you guys, take a look in the description below. Hop into the Discord. $9.30 per month, 31 cents per day. Again, that's where I post all the plays I'm making on PrizePicks. We have other cappers in there as well. Super positive community. Everyone in there just trying to help each other cash. I also want to mention I'm currently doing a promo right now for first-time members of the Discord. 20% off your first month using promo code TUFF with the link in the description below of this video. Again, promo code TUFF with the link in the description below to join the Discord. But let's get right into it, you guys. 2 player props for this Sunday slate, Week 2 NFL season. Let's not waste any time. Let's just get right into it. So both these plays are going to be fantasy score lines. I've actually kind of filtered this out to 2 props that I do like that I think are pretty much undervalued currently that are on the board. The first one being Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, I like his over 13.5 fantasy score. I would play the bump at 14. I do think there is a chance that this does bump to 14 by the time this game starts on Sunday. Again, I'm recording this video Friday. So, again, 13.5 fantasy score for Aaron Rodgers. Again, I would play this line at 14 if it does bump to 14. But I like this spot here a lot for him. I think this should be a pretty friendly matchup at home, right? Home matchup for the Steelers, right, against the Seattle defense. It's just a soft defense, but mainly this line is just too low for me, in my opinion. We look at Aaron Rodgers' fantasy score line over on Outlier. Again, there's a link in the description. You guys can get a 7-day free trial with Outlier. This is a research betting tool that I do use every single day. But we look at this, going back to last season, over in 13 of 17 games last season, averaging 15.86 fantasy points. I would say he is in a much friendlier offense as far as for fantasy score purposes for a player like Aaron Rodgers, who is obviously not a dual threat quarterback, pocket passer. Arthur Smith, the offensive coordinator at Pittsburgh, did a great job in Week 1, and it really showed because Aaron Rodgers finished with 25.6 fantasy points in Week 1 in that game against the Jets, which was a high-scoring game. I think that may have had one of the lowest over-unders of any game during the week, and it ended up being one of the higher-scoring games of Week 1. But we look at the Seattle Seahawks this season, the Seattle Seahawks versus quarterback position in Week 1. They gave up 23.6 fantasy points to Brock Purdy. I think in Week 1, we look at how kind of he fared. He did throw 2 interceptions, but he was still able to get 265 through the air and two touchdowns, 26 for 35 passing, 92.2 passer rating. But again, Seattle is pretty middle of the road against quarterbacks. We saw even last season versus the Seahawks how many different quarterbacks were able to clear this line. Let's actually see. This is starting quarterbacks. This may not all be starters. Let's filter this to logging 20-plus pass attempts, just to give you guys reference on how low this kind of line is for a player like Aaron Rodgers. I mean, last season, players that threw 20-plus pass attempts versus the Seahawks, we saw 10 of 15 quarterbacks go the over on this 13.5 fantasy score line. It's a great spot. We look at Aaron Rodgers just going back to in his kind of career, in again this what the amount on StatMuse will show, but when he throws 30-plus pass attempts, he's over this fantasy score line this is his last 25 games throwing 30-plus pass attempts. He's over this line in 20 of his last 25 games when he throws the ball 30-plus times. So weather's not going to be a factor here in this one. I do like this spot here a lot for Aaron Rodgers. Again, also, Steelers don't really have a bell cow back. I know they have Jalen Warren, Caleb Johnson, Kenneth Gainwell, but it's not like they have a bell cow back who's going to just get 20 touches in a game and take that production away from Aaron Rodgers. So this is the first play. The second one here is going to be Aaron Rodgers' teammate last season. I like Breece Hall. I like his over 12.5 fantasy score. Again, this one, we go back to last season, taking a look over on Outlier for Breece Hall. Let's see. Last season, Breece Hall over 9 of 16 on this line, 15.18 fantasy points average in those games. And obviously, it was a down year for Breece Hall, and he still was able to clear this line in 9 of 16 games. We look at the snap count for the Jets in Week 1, 58% snap percentage, 37 total offensive snaps for Breece Hall, which led the team. Braylon Allen got touches, but he looks like he's the bell cow back because Braylon Allen wasn't that productive on the ground. But I like this spot mainly because of the matchup and given the usage that Breece Hall is now seeing in this new revamped Jets offense. We look at last season. This is last season, 2 running backs. Let's actually see PPR scoring to running backs. The Buffalo Bills allowed the 6th most fantasy points to the running back position in all of the NFL. PPR fantasy points in all of the NFL last season to the running back position. And then we just saw in Week 1 the type of game Derrick Henry had against the Bills, 31.6 total fantasy points that the what am I thinking about here? The Bills gave up to Derrick Henry and whoever our other running backs are on the Ravens that were able to be productive. Also, we look at running backs last season, just high usage, high volume running backs that saw 15 plus carries against the Bills. This line here, I think every single running back except for Tony Pollard clearly over on this line. Jonathan Taylor's 14.2. You could kind of see here the PPR scoring for players that got 15 carries, and Breece Hall being one of them here, 21.9 fantasy points last season versus the Bills. I like this spot. Obviously, receiving upside is there for him as well. I think he was like the leading receiver, one of the leading receivers on the Jets in week 1. So, again, 2 former teammates, 2 player props. Rodgers, fantasy score, Breece Hall, fantasy score, both overs. Again, I would honestly play both these lines at a 0.5 bump. I'd play Aaron Rodgers at a 0.5 bump, and I would play Breece Hall at a 0.5 bump as well. Please let me know in the comments what you guys feel about these 2 plays. Drop a like, hit the subscribe button, and as always, let's cash.